Welcome to ISO 9001 Internal Audit Step by Step. In the next 15 minutes, we'll walk through the complete internal audit process, from planning and preparation through conducting the audit, writing findings, and driving corrective action. Internal audits are one of the most powerful tools in your quality management system, but only if they are done right. Whether you are preparing for your first internal audit or looking to sharpen your existing skills, this overview will give you the practical foundation you need. Let's get started. Let's start with audit planning. Effective preparation is what separates a valuable audit from a checkbox exercise. Before diving in, let's define the key concepts every internal auditor must understand. Audit criteria are the requirements you audit against. For an ISO 9001 internal audit, this includes the standards clauses, your organization's quality policy, documented procedures, process specifications, and any applicable regulatory requirements. Clearly defined criteria prevent subjective auditing. Audit evidence is the information you collect during the audit to determine whether audit criteria are met. Evidence must be verifiable, relevant, and sufficient. It includes records, documents, direct observations, interview responses, and measurement data. Opinions and assumptions are not audit evidence. A nonconformity is a finding where audit evidence demonstrates that a requirement is not being met. Major nonconformities indicate a systemic failure or absence of a required process. Minor nonconformities are isolated lapses that do not affect the overall system. Both require documented corrective action. An audit trail is the logical path you follow through a process to verify that it works as intended. You start with an input, trace it through the process steps, verify controls at each stage, and confirm the output meets requirements. Following audit trails is the most effective technique for discovering real issues. ISO 19011 defines the audit process that ISO 9001 internal audits should follow. Here are the key phases. Planning starts with the annual audit program that ensures all QMS processes are audited at planned intervals. For each audit, you define the scope and criteria, assign competent auditors who are independent of the area being audited, review previous audit findings and process documentation, and prepare audit checklists based on the applicable ISO 9001 clauses. Conducting the audit begins with an opening meeting to confirm scope and logistics. You then gather evidence through document review, interviews with process owners and operators, direct observation of work activities, and examination of records. Use open-ended questions and follow audit trails through processes to verify conformity. Reporting documents your findings objectively and factually. Each nonconformity must reference the specific requirement not met, describe the evidence found, and classify the finding as major or minor. The audit report also includes observations, positive findings, and an overall conclusion on QMS conformity and effectiveness. Follow-up verifies that corrective actions have been implemented and are effective. This is where audits deliver real value. You verify that the root cause was identified, the corrective action addresses the root cause rather than just the symptom, and the action has prevented recurrence. Only then should findings be closed. The difference between an audit that drives improvement and one that wastes everyone's time comes down to approach. Ineffective auditing relies entirely on checklist yes or no questions, focuses on whether documents exist rather than whether processes actually work, positions the auditor as an inspector looking for someone to blame, and produces vague findings like procedure not followed that are difficult to act on. Effective auditing takes a process-based approach, following audit trails from input to output. It verifies actual implementation through observation and objective evidence. The auditor acts as an improvement partner, gathering facts without blame. Findings are specific, referencing exact requirements and describing the evidence that demonstrates the gap. Now let's cover the practical techniques for conducting the audit, writing effective findings, and ensuring corrective actions deliver real improvement. Skilled auditors use a combination of techniques to gather reliable evidence efficiently. Document review verifies that required documented information exists, is current, and is controlled. However, a document on its own only proves that someone wrote something. Always compare what is documented against what is actually practiced on the ground. The gap between documentation and reality is where most nonconformities live. Interviews help you understand how people actually perform their work. Use open-ended questions like "Show me how you do this," "Walk me through the process," and "What happens when something goes wrong?" Avoid leading questions and yes or no formats. Interview people at multiple levels to verify consistency. Direct observation verifies that work practices match documented procedures in real time. Watch normal operations rather than asking for a demonstration. Observe how people handle exceptions and errors, not just routine work. Take notes on what you see and verify your observations with the audit. Sampling examines a representative subset when reviewing every record is impractical. Use risk-based sampling, focusing on high-risk processes, recent changes, customer complaints, and corrective action records. Document your sampling method and size so findings are defensible. A well-written finding is the bridge between audit evidence and corrective action. Here is the structure every finding should follow. Every finding must start with the specific requirement that is not being met. Reference the exact ISO 9001 clause, procedure number, or specification. For example, ISO 9001 Clause 8.5.2 requires identification and traceability. This establishes the objective basis for the finding. The evidence section documents exactly what you found. State specific facts, what you observed, which records you examined, what was said during interviews, and the dates and locations involved. For example, 3 of 5 production records sampled from January 2026 were missing traceability identifiers. Avoid opinions. The gap statement clearly describes the nonconformity, the difference between what is required and what was found. Classify it as major if the failure is systemic or could result in delivering nonconforming products, or minor if it is an isolated lapse. The classification guides the urgency of corrective action. The audit is responsible for identifying the root cause and proposing corrective action with a completion timeline. The auditor's role is to verify that the root cause analysis is adequate and the proposed action addresses the cause, not just the symptom. Never prescribe solutions. That compromises auditor independence. Let's close with the most important lessons for effective ISO 9001 internal auditing. First, follow audit trails through processes from input to output. This is the single most effective technique for discovering how work actually gets done. Documents tell you what should happen. Audit trails show you what really happens. Second, write findings that are specific, evidence-based, and reference exact requirements. A finding that says procedure not followed is useless. A finding that references the specific clause, describes the evidence, and quantifies the gap enables effective corrective action. Third, corrective action must address root causes, not symptoms. Verifying that corrective actions are effective and have prevented recurrence is where internal audits deliver their greatest value to the organization. And fourth, auditor independence and objectivity are non-negotiable. Never audit your own work or processes you are responsible for. Maintain professional objectivity, report facts without bias, and never prescribe solutions. Your credibility as an auditor depends on your independence. That wraps up our overview of ISO 9001 internal auditing. In the full Udemy course, you'll get detailed lessons on each phase of the audit process, practical checklists for every ISO 9001 clause, real-world audit scenarios and exercises, and templates for audit plans, reports, and corrective action tracking. Use the course to develop the auditing skills that drive real quality improvement. Thank you for watching. If you found this overview helpful, subscribe to the channel for more content, and check the description for the link to the full course. See you in the next video.